I thought I just had probably really a lot of fun. There was, you tell me how much we put in that. Oh, that was one of my reasons. Ostensibly being in the goal. We went up there that national park, Colorado trip. So I went. And unfortunately, I landed my flat instead of like a bomb my tail. It so well, but it was okay. Everything worked, and I speeded off. Well, and they're on. So yeah, they're. All things considered.
I hit a saw business on dirt. You know, seeing a lot of dirt, then. Oh, so much. I really did it hurts so much. Yeah. That was a couple of years, that's been a couple of years, but still. Yeah.
Well, I hope Michael and Miss Bailey, they are younger and they just like that drug here.
Call this meeting of the Fraser Planning Commission to order with a roll call.
Margaret Bowles. David Bowles.
Arnell Quinn. And we got some
Philip Vanderneel.
Bob Ganussi.
Joy McCoy.
and Andy Miller. Thank you. So could I have a motion for approval of the agenda? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, the only thing on the consent agenda is the minutes from January 25th. A motion to approve the consent agenda. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so I guess the applicant isn't here. One agenda item. Or planners, I guess that should we go and move into that, or?
I would go ahead and start with,
Yeah,
Julie, I'm gonna.
yeah, plan report and everything, so. Okay, so we've got a public hearing and possible action of 461 Muse Drive final plat. And is this a public hearing they need to open or anything yet for that, or?
Yes,
Okay.
after Julie does, her part of the business, and then we'll open the public hearing.
Are you ready for me to present then?
Yeah, if you could, Julie, that'd be great, thank you.
Sure, okay. I'm gonna share my screen. I have a quick presentation. You guys will be familiar with this. This was a preliminary plat. That was heard a couple of months ago. So this is the final plat and major site plan re-review for 461 Muse Drive. The request is to subdivide, hold on one second, I just need to adjust my view of the video so I can see the whole screen. Sorry, thank you. So it's the request to subdivide the property at 461 Muse Drive in order to build and convey ownership of 2 triplex townhome buildings. Vacant lot is approximately 20,599 square feet. And allows maximum of 6 dwelling units based on density and the zoning, which is a low density multifamily. So you remember this from last time too. They need a major site plan and a major subdivision. We already reviewed and conditionally approved the preliminary plat. So this hearing is for the final plat review. The Planning Commission will be making a recommendation to the board, and the board will make the final approval. The applicant is Michael Zieler with KBZ Investments. He's also the property owner. As I mentioned, it's located at 461 Muse Drive, zoned low density multifamily. And the proposed land uses for the 2 multifamily dwelling units. Each will have 3 bedrooms. Here's the location map. I think you guys remember where it's located on Muse Drive, near the library. Here's the zoning map showing that it is in the low density multifamily residential district. Here is the final plat, which has been resubmitted and is ready for approval. Here is the site plan. As you'll notice, there were some additions to some sorry, let me move on to the grading plan. This has the additions of the stormwater detention as requested by the Merrick engineers and also by the property owners in the neighborhood. The proposed building elevations were submitted by the applicant are shown here. Those are the same as from the preliminary plat. Here's the information on the referral, which was sent out in December, late December, and then comments were sent to the applicant on January 20th. The hearing was published in the newspaper on February 9th and letters mailed to property owners on January 31st. We did receive some additional comments, again, from Jane Mather, who is the property owner at 451 Muse Drive, which is the property adjacent and south of this property. She had some comments regarding the Merrick review, and I forwarded those comments to Merrick just yesterday. We have not heard back from them yet. I asked for comments to be received by February 28th so that we can possibly discuss them at the March 1st board meeting. The review of the final plat is regulated by section 19.3-230, and in summary, it requires submittal of all required documents, studies, and reports, which were all received and reviewed. There are a few outstanding referral comments that will be a condition of approval. The final plat is also required to be submitted within 1 year of the preliminary plat approval, and that was done. Subdivision allows for the sale of lots. However, for condos or townhomes, an as-built plat is required for the sale of the individual units. So if a property owner decides to sell these units, that will require an as-built plat at a later date. And also a subdivision improvement agreement is required for the private drainage facilities, and that will be required prior to final plat approval as well. So our recommendation is that the Planning Commission recommend approval to the board for this development application with these 5 conditions. First is the addressing of the referral comments. Second is that the SIA is required. Third, the applicant shall pay fees in lieu of land dedications for parks and schools. Fourth is fulfilling the checklist items required in the code prior to the recording of the major subdivision, which includes the production of the Mylar and information information needed by the town for addressing and GIS system. And then concurrent with the final plat, the applicant shall record the SIA, the subdivision improvement agreement, as well as the HOA declaration, restricted covenants, and bylaws. And that is the presentation I have for you today. If you have any questions, please let me know.
I'm sorry, Andrew, what's the point at which I should open that, you should open the public hearing?
I can,
Go ahead, yeah.
typically the planning commission meetings, you'll have presentation by the planner, the county planner.
Yeah.
That's typically followed by comments from the applicant himself. There's some, can be some general discussion. After that process is when you open the public hearing.
Yeah.
There's one item that I would like to point out, discussion I've had with Cornell, would like to make a statement.
Yeah, I had some ex parte conversations with Mike Zeeler, mainly regarding our code rules and regulations about how we develop things, what's required for ADA parking, and some questions about easements and how they work. That's what makes sense of our conversation.
So to explain to, the planning commission and to those in attendance, the planning commission is a quasi judicial board. You're here to make determinations of fact on the case and make recommendations going forward. Because of that quasi judicial role, if you have communications with the applicant or with staff related to this, they could possibly influence your vote. That's regarded as ex parte communications, the same kind of communications that the judge would prohibit in a jury trial. There's two courses of actions that in that event you could disclose the ex parte communications, or you could recuse yourself from being part of that discussion. So we had a discussion a couple weeks ago about this, and Barnell was chosen to disclose the ex parte communication.
What if you have conversations with neighbors or other people that might be affected by it? So
That can affect the ex parte as well. Okay. But again, planning commission is to make a little of fact. Fact based on our code, fact based on the application. Does it meet all the conditions in our code? Does it meet the conditions of reviewing agencies and so forth?
get in.
So at this point, we can open that up to the applicant.
Okay. That's it.
Hi, everyone. Well, at this point, I think everyone knows me and is pretty familiar with our project.
Let's just your name for the record.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Mike Zeeler with KBZ Investments. My wife and I are partners in that company. She didn't want to make the drive up tonight for obvious reasons. So I am here. We live part-time in Old Town.
Thanks.
So, you're welcome. Yeah, like I said, by this point, most of you are familiar with me and our project. We're trying to subdivide a property at 461 to convey ownership of the two triplex buildings. Obviously, it's vacant land, low density multifamily zoning, which by property right allows 3 units. And our project is in compliance with all setbacks, lot width, building height, open space, parking, and snow storage requirements. So we're not requesting any variances or any special approvals at this time. Overall, our project design hasn't changed significantly since our major site plan and preliminary plat hearing back in November. We worked with Fraser Planning Department to iron out a lot of final details such as parking requirements, the dumpster screening, the plantings. There was a couple of clarifications on the land use tables, a few drawing labels that planning wanted to see. And we've also sent them our proposed HOA documents. Our surveyor, as Julie had just mentioned, has updated and finalized the final plat. We've coordinated with all of the local utility companies such as water, sewer, gas, electric providers. We've been in contact with Fraser's legal counsel regarding the SIA agreement. And we've also talked to East Grand Fire, and they verified that they're good with our project. And really the only outstanding items, we're in final coordination right now, the drainage plan with Merrick. They had quite a few comments. It's taken us time to pick up some of their comments. But we do expect that to be completed this week. So basically, other than a few conditional approval items that Julia laid out there, we should be good to go. So, do any of you have any questions?
Any questions from the board at all? Or?
Well, you've done a lot of good work. That's ready to go.
Thanks.
Any board members online also, Joy or Phil? Or Bob, sorry.
This is Bob Danusi, and I think first of all, excellent presentation. Good documents, everything looks to be in order. I have no questions.
Hi, all. This is Joy, and sorry I couldn't be there with you today. I'm fighting a cold. I do have a question about in order for the board to approve a final plat, do we need a finalized drainage report done beforehand?
Yes, that's part of the conditions of approval. And I think that I can't remember what Merrick requested, if they asked for a resubmittal of the report itself or just updates to the plan. But the plan needs to be satisfied before the plat is finalized.
Julie, excuse me, Julie, what's the status of that right now? Of the drainage plan?
So as Mike mentioned, it's been through 2 rounds of referral, and Merrick has a letter. It was included with the packet. Those comments need to be addressed to Merrick's satisfaction, and Mike is working with them to get those taken care of.
And that's the condition before final plat, correct?
Correct.
And the final plat is approved by the Board of Trustees,
Right.
Planning Commission.
Yeah. So typically, Joy, it would be good to have that done, but it can be a condition, but you can make a decision based on the completeness of that if you want, but it seems like Julie, I think the review from, and Merrick is the town contracted engineer, right?
Yeah, the town engineer.
Right. So it seems like the comments that that review comments are not even major there, but that's a subject for discussion, obviously. So is there something you saw there, Joy, you were concerned about, or?
No, I just wanted to make sure that it was those things as suggested by the staff are going to be addressed, and it is going to go for final approval from the board, correct? The Planning Commission recommendation is just if we move forward from here today, as those suggestions are going to be addressed and then finally approved by the board. I'm just making sure that I understand.
Yeah, right. That's the process. We're an advisory board, and typically there'll be some things that need to be polished up and finished between us and them. But it's always, you want to see a complete application so that the board has a complete application to work with, but there's some time too, so.
Right. Thank you so much for clarifying. Yeah, I was kind of wondering why the drainage report wasn't signed, but I do realize that it's not finalized as of today.
And Mike, you worked on that for a couple of revisions through this process, so.
Yeah, we've been working hand in hand with Merrick to satisfy some of the requirements. Honestly, really in concept, it's done. The only thing that they're requesting is a couple of extra details as far as the orifices that come out of the drainage ponds. So we're just basically refining pipe sizes, and in concept, it's about the same.
It is different than what we saw during you've done quite a bit of work since the preliminary plat, so.
Yeah, most of it's just kind of working with grade lines and swales to make sure that the water doesn't leave the site.
Right.
So we've kind of created a berm around it. Basically, the grades are about the same, but there's a berm so that we can push the water into those detention ponds to protect the surrounding properties and make sure that it flows correctly. Those are honestly, if you look through the comments, there wasn't much in there. They just want a clarification on the concept essentially, and rearranging some of the volumes that are in those ponds based upon where the water is going. And actually, they've been pretty accommodating as far as there was a pond that was in between the two buildings that we may be able to actually eliminate that one.
Yeah,
Because we actually had over detention,
more detention.
more detention than was necessary, exactly. So they've actually been suggesting a lot of helpful things.
Yeah.
So,
Okay,
like I said, I think we should have that fully done by the end of this week.
sounds good. Anything else from the board? Should be ready to open the public hearing.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay, I move to open the public hearing.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Oh.
Okay, so do you have any comments from the public?
I'm sorry, who seconded that?
Me.
Okay, thank you.
State your name and where you're from.
Hi there, my name is Polly Gallagher. I'm with Grand County Library District, and we have a property at Fraser Valley Library that's adjacent. Concerned about the drainage, look forward to reviewing and seeing that plan, as our parking area is highly used by mixed ages and weather can be slick and icy. Also want to take a look at, and it might not have been in connection with this, but it came in the same packet, changes in the flood insurance plan. Is that in connection?
Floodplain?
No, okay, that was a separated one, so that was the other items.
Yeah, the floodplain map just came out, I guess, but I don't know.
We received it last week.
Yeah, so I'm sure our engineer will look at
Okay,
it.
I know we requested some further details and information that we haven't received yet, so I
Right.
look forward to receiving those. But just looking forward to seeing that drainage map and what that has on it. Thank you.
I want to turn your parking lot into a skating.
I really appreciate not doing that. Thank you.
Jane Mather, 451 Muse Drive, also on the Zoom call is Paul and Robin Langowski, who are also residents of 451 Muse Drive. One question, but I have one short letter to read you that I sent to Julie. And if you want a written copy, I've got some, but it's pretty short. We do have a question for Julie as to whether the applicant has provided, if the applicant has provided responses to the merit report, is it with regard to the calculations and explanations for the adequacy of the capacity and slope of the drainage? Is that something that we can review?
So at this time, the applicant is working directly with Merrick to answer those questions. I have not received a formal resubmittal with response to comments yet from the applicant.
Okay. So we would like to see that. I've written I think 2 or 3 emails to Julie with requests for information on the drainage report and additional responses. So we continue to have the same concerns we presented at the planning hearing for the preliminary plat on November 23rd. The first one is the drainage. We continue to be concerned that the proposed grading plan blocks our existing drainage. Without appropriate drainage, this grading plan would lead to offsite runoff from the wetlands to the southwest, accumulating on our property, and additional flooding in our crawl spaces, which already flood a lot. We don't want them flooding anymore. The developer proposed a drainage plan, but what we've reviewed so far does not appear to provide sufficient appropriate drainage to avoid that offsite runoff accumulating on our property.
For example, the inlet elevation for the area drain that's in the southwest corner. So that's the one closest to the meadow, is at an elevation of 8573. And the land on our property to the south of that is below 8573. So that means that that drain is not going to drain any of our water. It's all going to accumulate on our property. That's what is on the drainage report that we reviewed. We are hoping that that's going to be addressed by Merrick. There are several other problems that we saw with the drainage report. With the drainage plan that I sent in some detail to Julie for Merrick to consider, and we've got more of them. But apparently Julie has told us we cannot communicate directly with Merrick. We do have some questions about Merrick's comments, which are of course the conditions for approval. They address the on-site runoff for the subject property and for downstream properties. They're unclear. They don't say that they're going to address the impact of the off-site runoff on our property. We're an upstream property, and there's nothing in the Merrick request to say that offstream. There's nothing in the Merrick request, in the Merrick comments, that says off-site runoff, the impact of off-site runoff on upstream properties needs to be addressed.
So Jane, we are at 3 minutes,
So I hope that you have some concern for this. So we've submitted questions to Merrick and to the town planner, and we're looking forward to a response. With regard to the driveway and the snow storage, we continue to be concerned that the site plans are inconsistent with our continued use of the parts of our driveway and areas of the snow storage, to which we have a legal right. These issues remain unresolved, but we've finally been contacted by Mr. Zeeler's legal representative and are hopeful that we can come to a mutual agreeable resolution.
okay, thanks, Jane.
That's it. Actually, if Paul, do you have anything that you'd like to say for your 3 minutes? Well,
It's,
Yeah, 3 minutes.
Yeah, and somebody else asked that question, not Jay.
okay.
Do you have any other comments from the public?
I'll pass, thank you.
I'll just second. There, is that one number?
Cool. Hi, my name is Megan Luther. I live at 307 Eastham. I have worked with Mike Zeeler before. I know he's done a lot of work on this project, and I understand everybody's concerned with drainage and everything. I know they'll take care of it, and I know you guys will see to it that they do. In regards to James, my question would be, did 451 Muse ever have a drainage study? Because it sounds like they already have issues. And to that point, Mike's taking care of what he can on his property. And I know this, we talked about it at board meetings and everything, and developers have a really hard time developing in the town of Fraser. So anything that we can do to help support getting more housing in this community would be awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any other comments from the public? Milo, to speak again?
Yeah. We're above.
All the members of the public and comments?
If public comment is over, you can go.
Yeah.
Public.
I move to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
I
Aye.
Typically, just one Andy, the applicant could answer
Yeah.
questions, yeah, for and then more discussions.
And just one quick question, though, what would be the best, if a member of the public has a question for the town engineer, what would be the best way to ask that question? Please probably through staff, I would say.
It would be like someone having a legal question about the town and one, but I don't think the town attorney.
All right.
So Julie's, some this is a planning issue. The town engineer represents the town to the developer, addressing their drainage requirements according to chapter 14 of our municipal code. all the design specifications of the infrastructure plus. Of course, the only public infrastructure on this project is the village. So. The town is the one that's, America is the one that's in the town's interest.
So,
And meeting drainage.
so these questions will come to the town. Yeah, the town will address them. Yeah. And use the engineering staff if we needed that assistance. Okay. Any other comments from the board?
Well, it's just on the drainage, it's my understanding that each lot is required to maintain the drainage on their own lot. It's not necessarily downstream because most of the flooding on that back part of Muse comes off of Ron Jones's property. The ranch back there, they got a bunch of small beaver dams or clogs and kids playing in the streams back there, and that seems to cause flooding, so. Each lot should have their own drainage plan to get the water off of their property.
Yeah.
And not be relying on the people downstream to take care of the issue for the upstream people.
Well, but you try to protect everybody.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, and
Absolutely.
I think, it should be said too, that it's been on the books for a long time, that for Fraser to work on that drainage issues from properties to the west.
Yep.
And that's part of the discussion with the Fraser Valley Parkway, or with the, whatever we're gonna call that, the extension from
Yeah.
50 to 83.
If we can get that done, that'll help tremendously.
I think that would help solve these drainage problems, because this is a common problem across all the properties along the west boundary of Fraser, so.
Yeah.
And Mike, I think you wanted to follow up with. Yeah, real briefly, please.
Yes, real briefly, please. I just want to let the board know that I'm a civil engineer. Merrick, they're engineers also. These drainage concerns are going to be resolved. It's going to be done the right way. I'm putting my stamp on these drawings. Merrick is thoroughly reviewing them. So it's not going to be a problem. If we want to talk about liability, I'm the structural engineer, I'm the civil engineer, I'm the developer, the architect, the financer. My wife and I are assuming all liability. Do you think we want to do this the wrong way? Do you think that we want a problem with our crawl spaces flooding? Or flooding anybody else in the area? They've had an ongoing issue. We're actually improving the drainage. We're actually dealing with all the wetlands in the back, because everybody is dammed up the back of Muse. So unfortunately, like I said last time, the music has stopped and we're the last lot back there dealing with it. And we're doing the best that we can. We're oversizing our pipes. We're installing these area drains. So I assure you that it's going to be done correctly. We're going to address every single one of Merrick's comments. I promise you that. All the contingent items will be taken care of. This issue keeps coming up about this snow storage and driveway issue with the neighbors. The snow storage is illegal to store on our lot. Okay, first and foremost. Second off, their driveway is 9 feet over the property line. I would like to solve this in a very neighborly way. Ms. Mather decided to have her lawyer send us a letter rather than communicating with me. Okay, I don't want to get into the weeds about all this. I would love to have a nice project that we solve this as neighbors. I should also point out that she doesn't have a claim to adverse possession or prescriptive easement. We have contacted previous owners of 461 Muse Drive. Both of them have signed a statement saying that the use of that land, storage, their trash enclosure or their trash dumpster is all by permission. It's all by permission. So when you have permission from somebody, if the land is sold, or if somebody wants to develop it, it is by permission. That permission can be revoked. Okay. I want to work with Mountain View Townhomes. I do. But I question Miss Mather's motivations here. Does she want to work with us, or does she simply want to stop our project and have the vacant lot next door? Thank you.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, this is Paul Angowski. I've just got to make a statement.
No,
Oh, I'm sorry. you closed the public hearing, you said you didn't want to make any comments, I'm sorry. This will be going to the town board for final approval, so that'll be the time, so. Sorry, Paul.
That's fine.
Any other comments from the board?
So Paul, this is Joy from the Planning Commission. I just wanted to make sure that you know that you can
So-
state your comments later on to the board.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Joy, sorry. Okay.
Hey, Andy. Andy,
That's Bob, sorry. Go ahead.
Andy, this is Bob Canusi. I wanted to ask Julie, if, given the concerns that were raised by public comment and the fact that we're in process of resolving the last remaining issues we believe, or we've been told, with Merrick, do you feel that we can move forward with the stipulations? I think you have 5 at the end of our presentation. You had 5 things that were going to be conditions if we approved this or recommend it to go forward, or these 5 cover some of the concerns that were raised?
Yes. So the concerns regarding the drainage are included in condition number 1, which is in regards to addressing the referral comments that were forwarded to the applicant on January 20th. In that packet, that referral summary includes the letter from Merrick. In addition, Jane Mather forwarded me a number of comments that she had in response to that letter from Merrick. And I did tell Ms. Mather that it would not be appropriate for her to contact Merrick directly, but since she sent me those comments in writing, I forwarded them to Merrick. They've only had a day or two to respond to that. And so I didn't think it was appropriate to have a response to those comments in such a short time, but I did ask them to respond by February 28th so that we could see those before the board meeting. I haven't heard back from her or from Merrick indicating that they would be able to meet that deadline, but I will be working on that with them in the next few days.
Okay, so what I'm hearing you say is that condition number 1 should give us a final opportunity to get this resolved such that Merrick is satisfied and it could go forward to the VOT? Correct. And
Okay.
Even if the comments are not 100% satisfied by the time this goes to the VOT, it's not unusual for some remaining comments to be outstanding and have those be a condition of final approval. And then it is town staff, and primarily my responsibility as planning staff, to make sure that those conditions are met before the plat is recorded and made official.
Okay, thank you very much for clarifying that.
Thanks,
Yep,
Bob.
you're welcome.
Yes,
So the town board can't approve it until all of those conditions are met.
sure.
So I think that we should recommend approval of this. It moves up to the town board level.
Want to make a
And
motion?
that gives Meredith a chance to finish all of their vetting and research on it. Make sure it's. No,
I'd entertain a motion
I will entertain a motion to approve
or make a motion.
resolution number 2023-0201, recommending approval of a final plat and approving a major site plan for residential development located at 461 Muse Drive, described as Buyers Vista Block 1, Block 4, Blaine County, Colorado.
With the 5 conditions.
The conditions are embedded in the resolution.
Right, okay.
Okay,
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 And Philip? Bill, did you,
I'm I.
okay, thank you. All right. Thanks. Thanks, everybody. Okay, next on, excuse me. Next on the agenda is open forum. Or not for items that were on the agenda, so. Any comments or things that were not on the agenda tonight?
But one thing I would mention that wasn't on the agenda that was brought up in meetings. You probably need to check that news drive and make sure there are some pumps going out to the road and not into the sewer system.
Yeah.
So we could remind the code officer to check that this spring, that would be great.
Yeah. It's been attached to the code obviously, but I think the building department's taken, well, I'm not sure who's done that in the past, but I know we've tried to monitor that, so
Yeah.
it's a good suggestion. So. Yeah, that's real, that water is not good for our sewer system, so. Cold and clear.
And strange thing, right?
Yeah. Did you have a comment?
I had a question for you guys. I don't know if this.
Name again. If you
Yep,
would, please.
Megan Luther.
Thanks, Megan.
You bet. Thanks, guys. I didn't know if this is the right spot for it, but wanted to ask if you guys were considering, I know downtown Fraser has the Riverwalk overlay. And with Victoria Village getting their height variance up to 55, if that's something that you guys have considered extending and becoming part of the plan for all of downtown Fraser.
So Julie, I think our height limitation in the Riverwalk is 45 right now.
It's 45.
So it is
Individual
45.
basis.
Okay, so but Victoria Village got 55.
Right, no, but that was site specific, so.
Okay,
What happened again, it would be a site case by.
so you guys will just go lot by lot.
Actually, we're not going lot by lot because that would require variance for lot by lot.
Yeah, well,
Victoria Village sits at a depth of about 10 feet lower than Highway 40. The purpose of Victoria Village and the development for affordable housing. It was recommended that we raise the height limits to 55 instead of requiring that the variance be made for specific individual buildings that might be in there. The board passed that the last board meeting. And part of that discussion had to do with the fact that it is 10 feet lower, so that pretty much brings up the height limits equal to the rest of downtown anyway.
Okay, I live on East Elm. We're also down, so if that's something that you guys, I just want to know if that's something you're taking into consideration.
And
Because we have a business zone property and we could build additional housing to taking that into consideration, which I think would be great for downtown, because then, you know, people walking everywhere and frequenting our establishments there is really nice, and the bus system works very well there, so.
yeah, I think the variance also took into consideration that these would be deed restricted units that guarantee adjusted rates based on the local AMI.
All of them deed restricted or percentage?
percentage.
Percentage.
Okay, so then that would likely be a stipulation for any other projects you're looking at in that area.
It's crystal ball, but the staff will sure work with you, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Persistent fraud here, sorry. So any other items on the open forum? Okay, other business, so any other?
So I
Planning
would
commission
really
discussion?
like for the planning commission be have on our agenda where we can sit down with a map of the town, their existing roads and with the lots and start to lay out what our transportation corridors are, what's possible.
So street plan, really, is more what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. Something I've pushed for a long time, and for instance, you know, we talked tonight at the Victoria Village Open House about access in and out of that project, and brought up the fact that it's extremely hard to go north to south on the east side of town. And there are ways without having to compromise that gated parking area. To get a street that could go from County Road 8 over Safeway. Unfortunately, not probably on the west side of the river, but possibly on the east side. But anyway, the map, some of these things that we looked at in the past, but we do need to start getting more serious about as our highway gets completely overloaded and it gets more and more challenging around this community, so.
So what do you think? Was that on our agenda?
I've been trying to get that on the agenda for 8 years.
Okay,
Yeah.
so,
Can I just make an observation?
yes,
From a planning, land use, traffic, you know, and even Mike too, your civil engineer understands this, that traffic patterns, traffic flows have to do with traffic usage, land use and development. It's a science. It's a science that requires traffic studies, traffic impact studies, understanding where you are. It's not necessarily something that a group of non-scientific engineers or non-engineers would get together and say, okay, this is our new traffic pattern. But as far as planning goes, I think that's a great idea for the board, for the planning commission, to bring recommendations. They can then go to the board of trustees, who would then make the determination
we considered.
of engaging a more formal traffic study.
How about our next meeting? Do we have anything on the agenda?
I'll ask Julian.
What's that?
So I'm hoping to bring something, thought anyways. Gentleman that had a issue with his, development permit has reconsidered what he was going to build and came up with a new idea, and so.
Well, this is another one you gotta recuse yourself from?
No, I don't make any money on it, so I can't, it's there, and it's the best thing for the town, so I'll have to accuse myself of that.
But I'd like to have that on our next planning commission meeting. We don't have anything else or two things that would take a ton of time.
But
Shouldn't
Claire-
take that long.
for clarity's sake, you want a map of the town, a map of the downtown, you
So,
know, I mean, this could be pretty broad.
yeah, well, and I think
Problems are in Old Town right now.
So Katie,
So,
because I've been studying, it, since real estate's my business, and that's what I get to do, and develop something that falls in line with it. I would recommend you start with a 3-mile zone.
Mhm.
And work your way where the congestion comes from the outside into the town, and just an overview of it, right? Not, like you said, not scientific, just an overview of it. Because those are some of those properties are stuff that we're trying to annex into the town. So knowing what's out there and how we could remove some roads or add roads, put traffic in different directions, is how we'd be able to spread that over instead of trying just to fit it all to what currently exists. So that would give us reasons to talk to people about annexing in. So, you know, you brought 2 great parcels, that are looking to annex, and then if we can get those, it would be fabulous for the town, so.
So what should we use to facilitate that conversation?
It'd be a workshop.
Well, I
A
mean, we're kind
workshop
of,
is a
we
great way to do it, so you're not.
want to work with the map we have on the wall.
It's like-
And,
Sorry, I didn't-
go ahead, no, that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, I'm trying to find a way to narrow that down. You're not gonna solve traffic problems.
Right,
in
no,
town
but
in a meeting.
this is just an overview, to have an idea of what isn't built on. That we could have a goal for moving traffic through town, it's not on highway. Code.
so the one document we have, and Michael got it for me a while back, I have to do some digging, but CDOT did give us a report on how they'd like to see
Right.
40 change, mainly in the way that our town streets meet US 40. And that was critical to what we looked at with Victoria Village. And please look at that document. It basically tries to line our side streets up because all of our side streets are offset. Because the history of that is that you guys probably all know this, but US 40 used to come up to Eisenhower and then go right up Eisenhower and then travel the west side of the valley to keep out of the wetlands down with it where the railroad is. And so they did, when the railroad went in long before the highway did, but it would have been about the early 1950s, they moved the highway out into the meadow. And US 40 went straight to the meadow and it cut across town at an angle. So it forever kind of screwed things up. We've got to look back to see what we can do to try and fix that. And the reason, Parnell, I think it's super important that we look hard at Old Town. Is that the more things get filled in, the less chances we have to make it work.
Right.
And the one route I'm thinking about on the east side, we could still make work, but a couple of those parcels get developed. And they don't get developed the right way, we're sunk. Back in the 1970s, when the manifest was here,
Yeah.
Virginia and I used to write editorials about how to do a bypass at Winter Park. Right, because we felt that the way to enhance downtown Winter Park was to not have the highway running through it. And that didn't go very far with the merchants, unfortunately, and it could have been done then, but there's no way you could do it now. Right. Correct. So all of these things I think are better to do before there's somebody at the table with a piece of property, and they're gonna have input, obviously, and have a tremendous amount of input if you want to put a street on it. But it's easier before they have a plan, and we can at least show those advantages and try and push that idea forward, so.
And I can do one more thing. Typically, when you do your comprehensive land use plan, it includes transportation.
Yeah.
And further growth and so forth. Okay, we still have money budgeted this year. We couldn't get to it last year. We have money budgeted this year, but it's $150,000 for a comp plan update.
Yeah.
And the comp plan update can address that. But absent of that, a workshop, we could locate that CDOT plan.
Yeah.
That Mike was talking about.
Yeah.
Michael's gonna be the new administrator in about 9 days. Right. Not that I'm counting.
And I would say that, just based on the amount of time I've been looking at it, it would take more than one workshop, and we should have kind of the, I like having, so we have a board meeting every Wednesday, so if it finds on Thanksgiving, or Christmas night, or whatever we're doing. That we have a workshop at the beginning of each meeting, kind of work through the process, because I agree with you, we should be helping people better understand what's the best use of land that's left. And how do we fit it into what we have?
Yeah.
So typically with the parcel I'm talking about, maybe this road access on the west side of the road.
West side, yeah.
So some things you can do in a work session is do what they call a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And I mean, identifying where problem areas are, congestion areas. We know that 2 million people drive through this area a year.
That's it, only 2 million?
2 million.
It's weekend, was
I will down. But if you want to schedule a workshop, you can talk to Michael, we can get that CDOT plan. CDOT also has traffic counts that they publish on a regular basis. I think there's a way we can provide information in advance of the meeting so people can come with a little bit of education.
And I'd love to see that master plan process. We have a lot on our plate. But we also have all these nice properties that aren't incorporated into the town. And if we started that process, they could be a part of that. They could give feedback. Because you don't have a crystal ball that goes and maybe have visions of what they want. So I just feel like there's so much left at this end of the valley, and it's really not that much. And we need to get a handle on it.
Yeah. Right.
Well, and you made a great point too, about, there's times and opportunities for making things happen. I will point out that most people that do the bypass, your downtown dies too.
Yeah.
But there are almost vibrant commercial area in this county. It's a dead end street, Grand Lake.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
You don't have a vibrant commercial area
In the summer.
because it's the end of the road.
But
it's summer.
it's 3 months, it does more than what Fraser does in a year.
Yeah.
But I'd like to also point out, Cornell has brought out times where he feels like we need to be looking at things like land use and defining better definitions of our land use. This past 3 or 4 weeks, I've been dealing with, actually the past month and a half, 2 months, I've been dealing with 2 potential developments on Clayton Court. Clayton Court is zoned medium density, single family.
That's in our overlay district, isn't it?
Yes, the underlying zoning district is medium density, single family.
We're saying that's
No, Andy, listen,
I looked it up,
it's single family, medium density.
didn't make it into our overlay.
The overlay district is an additional, so. It says you can do the underlying zoning, or you can do the overlay. The overlay is a river mixed use.
But they have to go on those terms.
Right.
Yeah.
They choose which one they want to use.
Right, yeah.
So I've got 150 Xerox, the old mobile home park. It wants to put a 5-bedroom single family house. Right now, By right, they can do that.
Yeah.
By right, they can do that. Across the street, at the north end of Clayton Court, I had somebody that's going to put in a fourplex town. Using the overlay district. By right, they can do that. However. That's their downtown.
Yeah,
That's their
our
downtown.
That's a Riverwalk.
That's a Riverwalk district.
Yeah.
That is. You give away all your commercial space for residential. You hamstring the town.
Oh, that.
Those are the kind of discussions this.
Yeah, you're right.
Anything we can do to
Absolutely.
help with that, 'cause that Riverwalk district, I think, would be the central feature of this valley if we were there.
Yes.
Because all of our commercial, all of our patios are on the highway. That's one place where we could put where people would really want to go.
Stream of cars flowing by.
What did you say? What did you say?
So I would say that would be, should be another workshop discussion.
Let's see if that will take it.
Sooner or later, but
That's it.
they can go like that.
Let's
Use
do
by
them
right.
let's get them going on our agendas, because we've had a lot of times where we haven't had them, and they all plan to.
Let's bring it up to this.
Let's do it.
I thought the overlay, you had to go with the overlay, you couldn't do anything but the overlay.
No. That wasn't good.
No, that would be replacing this, yeah. Which probably needs to be replaced.
Well, but that's true for our whole zoning, all of our zoning statutes allow it and allow.
Right.
You know, and you could put up, true, I mean, you just said that's the maximum you can do, none of our zoning require you to do anything other than that's a maximum you can do on that site.
I think the right way to think of that, Andy, is all those zoning codes, all those zoning districts have what they call use by right.
Yeah.
And then the use by condition. But use by right means that, you know, if they want to take 150 Xerox, which is a big ex-mobile home park, and put a single family home, there's not a damn thing anybody can do to stop it.
So is there anything you can be regulatory wise to stop?
Yes, you have a workshop, you bring recommendations to the board.
Yeah.
For some.
So like, well, when the park is.
Even though they bought the house with that existing residential.
They
can
bought
still
the
change
property.
it.
No, that's,
Or bought the private property.
I think I've talked them out of the same thing.
Anything before the building permit.
So we have a meeting scheduled in a couple, 3 weeks.
They're gonna have input to this too, Dave. We do rezoning at the board level, the public comes in and everybody has inputs.
It's a big procedure.
It is. We need to have that process. We need to have that discussion.
Winter Park, just the, I can't say just, but I'm a couple years old now, but they took down the entire highway. And took the town park and 75-foot setback on each side, and it has to be commercial on the lower level. And residential on the upper level. Has to be. And the idea is to make it more of a walking town and try to get people to slow down as they go through the park.
And Ed Breckenridge did do a bypass to downtown, and downtown is thrived. So big time, I mean, to the point where they're building parking garages on the outside of town.
But it's not a mandatory bypass, you can still take that, it's just an option.
No, well, but co-op, they made an easy way to get around town.
Right.
Yes, right.
So, yeah.
So I do have one other piece of maybe business. And again, a reminder.
So that would be the first workshop, the zoning workshop.
Yeah, good idea.
That's supposed to be a traffic.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
well, list them both. I'm gonna let Michael and Julie work with.
Yeah. You bet. Yeah.
Yeah, but the last thing I wanted to talk about, tonight was the first meeting from Victoria Village Master Plan. Tonight's meeting was at the church. We had some problems, weather was a big factor in getting people there, and then Sky High News dropped the ball and did not put out the article announced at this time. There'll be another meeting probably in late March.
March 7th.
This meeting really was about understanding the concept. They're gonna get more involved, start really kind of getting defining the design of that. Staff is gonna be working more to put the word out on social media to get more citizen participation. I think the weather was a major factor.
I stayed away from tonight's meeting. But do you want us, should we go to the?
Yeah.
Sure. That's what we have.
Katie and I went over to it.
So, and because it's posted as a meeting, we can all be there.
All the
There's not-
trustees, we post that more,
Yep.
that two or more trustees may be in attendance.
Yeah.
So we.
Yeah, 'cause the last time I had a meeting like that. Somebody recommended that not be at the meeting.
No.
Yeah, and this is-
I know, that's why I went.
Well, it depends on the kind of meeting, this is a planning vision.
One big curveball that's been thrown in this project is that the floodplain. Yeah, it just came up a pretty big chunk out of this property.
It doesn't. It doesn't. I reviewed the floodplain map and actually in some places it reduces it.
No, but it's that corner there by the highway, right there where Jeff and I talked about all that. He's got to go back to JBA and several engineers. We should be able to raise it. But it's, if there's two floodplains, there's the corridor, which is fine. But that light green area comes over into the corner of that main development area along the highway.
So they have a copy of the new law mark.
Yeah.
And that will have to be factored in.
Yeah, but Jeff thinks we still work with the JBA and hopefully overcome that. Sometimes you can't fill those overflow areas in because it fills the other area up too much, but you can also improve the drainage to the core areas and get away with getting some fill into those areas.
So it's a matter of brevity. I don't think the floodplain affected the library district. It looks like it's excluded from the new floodplain.
Yeah.
I think Paul Johnson, our public works director, has reviewed that. I'll have him get a copy of that too.
Good stuff.
Yes.
Look forward to. Anything else? Talk about future agenda items. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Hi,
Thanks, everybody that zoomed in.
good night, y'all.
Thank you all. Safe travels.
Yes, good night, everyone.
Thanks, Julie.
Thank you.
Sure glad you made it.
I'm sorry.